Hey guys, this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam. Um, Today I wanted to share a big one. You know how I have these insights now and then, and I like to report breaking news. And this one is about how we hear that the ego or the sense of self is an illusion. Right? It's just an illusion. And through some fairly deep self-inquiry, I've come to the conclusion that the term illusion could be misinterpreted to say it's an illusion in the sense of a mirage type of thing, right? A kind of, what would you call it? An illusion in the sense of an invalid story that we tell ourselves. But I think it's more accurate to say that the individual sense of self is a wishful fantasy. Or that when we say illusion, what we mean is a fantastic wishful hope that we espouse, that we hide behind, and that we dare not challenge because of what we believe the implications would be. You see, deep in the deepest recesses of our mind sits a kernel, the kernel of a belief that we in reality are apart, that there is 1 degree of distance, at least, somewhere between reality and ourselves. And we pretend that degree is there, and we dare not look at the place where the degree purports to sit. In other words, that which says I or I am, and it keeps asserting itself in your mind on a constant basis, when looked at, is nothing but the idea that there's a gap between reality and us. And there's nothing else to it than that. Because when that gap is seen, we realize that that gap was acting as a kind of open interrupter switch, which was not allowing information between reality and that which we call our sense of selves to join together. So really what creates the sense of separation is a notion, and it's a very, very deep notion, that there is separation. And we dare not look at the sense of self directly. It distracts us through all kinds of shame and guilt and anger and all manner of things. It distracts us through spiritual seeking to pretend that there's an entity behind the thought I am. But there is no such thing. So really the thing to consider here is that of all the darlings that we don't want to kill in our mind, of all the sacred cows that live in our mind, the most exalted one is the notion that I have a degree of separation and therefore protection or leverage against reality. And we dare not question that one because it's too damn scary. And even if we would question it intellectually, to question it perceptually by looking for the I am that asserts to be there is a very tough journey somehow. It's somehow too damn scary unless we completely surrender to what is, at the risk of being completely burnt and annihilated. That unless we do that, we will never dare to question whether there is a separate self or not. because the implications of not having a separate self, if we are not willing to contend with reality as it is, are too scary to even contemplate. And so the ultimate ask really is to say to reality, I will entirely play by your rules. You do with me as you wish, and I'll continue to just do my best, which is all that I can do. That the moment we do that and we really submit to the will of what's up, not to get too fuzzy about the divine and whatever, we submit to what's up. That the moment we are really, really willing to face life on its terms, the need for a separate sense of self becomes redundant. We are, by that same token, willing to entertain the notion that we don't have separate free will, that we can't protect ourselves from reality because we are an integral part of it. But this is a very scary thought, because we'd like to think that we have somewhere to push ourselves from. If you remember 2 videos ago, I was talking about give me a fulcrum and I'll move the world, and how the attributeless higher self that we truly are is that fulcrum from which we can move the world. But finding that fulcrum is finding that we are the world, and that things are pretty much arranged in the way that they are. So the need for the fulcrum disappears, right? We first find our center, and then the center becomes redundant because we are ready to contend with everything as it is, and there is no need for our mind to find shelter in manufactured separations or platforms from which we can push against reality. Yeah. It's very interesting, isn't it? And it's very fresh as well, so I'm still processing exactly what this is. But as I said, there is no need for a separate sense of self with will that is free from the boundaries of reality or from the tenets of reality, if our commitment grows large enough to contend with reality as it is. To the degree that we accept reality as it is, we become an integral part of it once again. There's no need to be separate anymore. The need for the separate sense of self becomes obsolescent. And yeah, it requires a pretty high degree of surrender, as a matter of fact, right? To the degree that we are pushing back on the way certain thing is, we will need to push from somewhere, and we will manufacture a fantasy of that somewhere existing. I am separate. I have something with which I can fend off the parts of reality that I can't stomach yet. So once again, the notion that the separate individual is an illusion. Illusion can be an inaccurate word to describe it, because again, we could say, oh, it's an illusion. It's like, oh yeah, it's imaginary. No, it's not an illusion in that sense. It's an illusion in the sense of something we espouse in our mind that gives us hope. We have illusory expectations about being separate, because not being separate would mean being at the mercy of a reality that we have not fully grown the capacity to contend with. You see? So our capacity to contend with and accept, rather, or surrender to the way things are, reveals that we never really had to fight off or hide away from reality, the yin or the yang reaction, and that we can both accept reality fully, that's healthy yin, and by that same token be fully responsive and proactive in the face of it. That's the yang element, but they are both happening at the same time, so that we have Tai Chi. I think this is really big. I think this is, it kind of signifies that the seeking is coming to an end, because what was missing was not so much the capacity to fight things off or hide away from them, but the capacity to be with them as they are. And so there was something to be found. The capacity to establish direct contact with reality was missing, and it was there to be found. It's not that there's nothing to find. Don't let anybody tell you that. Anybody. That what you find was already there, which is reality, is true, but your capacity to connect with it was not there. That's a trainable capacity. And the more we train our capacity to be with something, the less the need to mentally manufacture the supposed capacity to be separate from it. You see? So that it can be escaped from or fought off. Yeah. So I think I have taken today a fairly big step in this journey, and I am very glad to report that none of the earlier assumptions are invalidated. In fact, it comes yet again to confirm that this is a highly somatic journey, that things don't need to contradict neuroscience, that we are looking to do integrative work, that embodiment is important, that the regulation of our nervous system is important, and that a wholesome disposition around persistence, curiosity, sincerity are definitely factors that play into this endeavor. And that there is, in fact, an endeavor. There is, in fact, one. This is not a lame finding where you go like, oh, it was already there. Yeah, sure. But could I feel it? Can you actually feel one with everything by dropping all barriers and having that be the result of growing the capacity to be in direct contact, direct bare bones contact with what's up? That's the ask. It's a simple but very difficult thing, and there is definitely a journey. Could this be done in one step? I think a fair amount of factors would have to line up for that to be the case. And even if that was the case, there might be still an integration period to follow from that. So that is what I wanted to share today, and I am very curious what you guys make of this. I have never been under the impression that any particular word or metaphor or video of mine could shift somebody's mindset into a direct awakening, although it can happen. But I'm hoping that these breadcrumbs plant seeds in people's minds, and that those seeds may find a way through life experience, spiritual practice, the practices of embodiment and yoga, and these sciences, that they may sprout into something very fruitful for you. So thank you for listening. Let me know what you think about this one. I'll be back with more videos pretty soon. Do like, share, and subscribe if you think that this might be helpful for others. Cheerio. Bye-bye.